One day, the king of the gods got a splitting headache, and out of his skull walked a fully grown, fully armored woman. That's not a metaphor. That's literally how one ancient Greek tradition says Athena was born. And she's not even the strangest birth story we're covering today. That king, by the way, Zeus. And here's the thing people forget. Olympus wasn't always ruled by Zeus. He had just won a brutal war against the Titans and established a new generation of divine rulers. But new kingdoms are fragile. And some of the gods who would eventually make Olympus legendary almost became a problem for its king before they were even born. So let's start with Athena. Zeus's first wife was an Oceanid named Metis, a goddess associated with wisdom and cunning. And there was a prophecy about her children. She would first give birth to a daughter. Then she would have a son. And that son was destined to become king of the gods and mortals. For Zeus, that's a pretty serious problem. Because overthrowing a father to claim the throne was a habit in this family, it's how Zeus had just dethroned Cronus, who himself had tried to stop the cycle by swallowing his own children. So Zeus decides he's not taking any chances. He swallows his pregnant wife. Problem solved, right? Well, not exactly. Metis was already carrying Athena. And according to Hesiod, Metis remained inside Zeus, and even fashioned the armor that Athena would eventually wear. Then, when the time came for Athena to be born, Zeus developed an unbearable pain in his head. And this is where the ancient traditions start giving us different versions. According to Apollodorus, either Prometheus or Hephaestus struck Zeus's head with an axe. In another tradition, it's specifically Hephaestus. The result? Athena exploded out of Zeus's head. Fully grown. Fully armed. And according to the poet Pindar, she emerged with a tremendous war cry. Not a baby's cry. A war cry. And honestly, that tells you almost everything you need to know about Athena. She's not wisdom sitting quietly on a throne. She's wisdom with a spear. She represents intelligence, strategy, and disciplined warfare, not simply raw violence. And there's something almost perfect about the symbolism. Zeus tried to prevent the birth of a child who might threaten his rule. Instead, he gave birth to one of the most powerful and important gods in his own new order. Now, Athena's birth begins with fear. This next one begins with jealousy. Zeus had a relationship with a goddess named Leto. And when Hera discovered that Leto was pregnant, she made sure giving birth would be anything but easy. But here's where the versions get complicated. In the Homeric hymn to Apollo, Leto travels from place to place looking for somewhere safe to give birth. Many places are afraid to accept her because they fear the power of the child she's carrying. Eventually, she reaches Delos, a small island in the Aegean. And Delos agrees to receive her. Later traditions describe Delos as a floating island, not firmly fixed like ordinary land. And that's where the twins are finally born. Artemis and Apollo. But even here, the ancient stories don't all agree on the details. In Apollodorus's version, Leto gives birth to Artemis first. And then Artemis helps her mother deliver Apollo. Think about that for a second. Artemis has barely entered the world. And she's already helping bring her twin brother into it. Her own birth becomes part of the story that later connects her with childbirth. And that connection isn't random. It's built directly into the mythology. And then these twins grow into two of the most recognizable gods in Greek mythology. Artemis becomes associated with hunting, wild animals, wilderness, chastity, and childbirth. And later traditions also strongly connect her with the moon. Apollo becomes associated with prophecy, music, archery, and healing, and later becomes strongly associated with the sun as well. So you've got two twins. Born from the same mother. On the same tiny island. But representing very different sides of the divine world. Artemis belongs to the wilderness. Apollo belongs to prophecy, music, and sacred knowledge. And both become enormously important across the Greek world. Look at how strange all three stories are. Athena isn't born normally. She's born from Zeus's head. Artemis and Apollo aren't born normally either. Their mother has to search for somewhere that will accept her on a floating rock in the sea. And that's not just because Greek mythology wanted to make bizarre stories. These myths are telling us something about the gods themselves. Athena's story connects her to wisdom, intelligence, and warfare from the moment she enters the world. She doesn't grow into those qualities. She's born wearing them. Artemis's birth connects her directly to childbirth and survival. Apollo's birth establishes the beginning of a god whose powers will shape prophecy, music, and healing across generations. Their origins aren't separate from their identities. Their origins explain their identities. Zeus already had the thunderbolt. Poseidon had the sea. Ares represented raw violence. But the Olympian world wasn't just about who could hit hardest. It was also about strategy, prophecy, music, hunting, and wisdom. Athena, Apollo, and Artemis didn't simply join Olympus. They made Olympus bigger than Zeus's power alone. Centuries later, when Athens built the most famous temple in the ancient world, the Parthenon, they didn't dedicate it to Zeus. They built it for Athena. Inside stood a colossal image of a goddess who had entered the world wearing armor, holding a spear, and shouting a war cry. A fitting patron for a city that wanted to see itself as powerful, intelligent, and indestructible. From paranoid swallowings to floating islands, these strange births laid the foundation for the Greek world as we know it. But we're not done. Because the next gods to enter Zeus's increasingly chaotic family tree: Ares, Hermes, and Dionysus. And trust me, their origin stories get even stranger.